Welcome back to Rick's Scale Model Fix, and today we're taking a look at Airfix's recent Vickers Wellington GRVIII in 1/72 scale. The catalogue number for this is A08020, and just having a look around the box, we've got some lovely artwork there on the lid, and as we can see we've got two decal options included. So without further ado, let's get the plastic out the box, take it over to the cutting mat and give it the once over. So we have the contents open now, and we're just going to have a look at the instruction booklet. So on the first page, as usual, there's the description of the aircraft and the specifications in multilingual format. Turning the cover, and we're greeted with some icons that are explained throughout the instruction booklet, and then this little diagram at the bottom of page 2. So basically it's going to explain that the parts highlighted in green throughout the instructions may be left out if the modeller wishes to speed the build process, as the items marked are not clearly visible on the completed model. Turning over to page 3, and we see assembly commence with the floor and bulkheads, different items going in, and you can see straight away that some of these are highlighted in green. Some nice little diagrams for exact angle of measurements, and working way through building up the inside of the fuselage around this central cockpit floor and section. Turning over the page, we've got some holes to open up, whether we want an open or closed bomb bay, and which front end we wish to depict for decal scheme A or B. Some more holes in the other fuselage side and removal of other details if we need the bomb bays closed. And a few more detail items being attached to the inside of the fuselage. And there we are, highlighted in green, so we could leave those out if desired. Page 5 sees the central cockpit fuselage floor being inserted into the one side of the fuselage, decals supplied for the kit instrument panel, and that being inserted to the nose of the aircraft. More bulkheads highlighted in green if we don't wish to use those, and the previous assemblies highlighted in red, so you can see there that the bulkhead and the internals are quite detailed, and probably even give the Trumpeter 1/48 scale kit a run for its money in terms of internal detail. It's going to be quite a lengthy build. As we can see, we're already up to stage 19 on page 6, and we've got some more bulkheads going in, some more internal fuselage detail, the walkway between the rear of the aircraft and the centre sections, more bulkheads, and other optional parts such as access doors are open or closed. Page 7, and we're now working on the front of the aircraft and adding some consoles and the cockpit detail into, and before we progress on to the bomb bay. Some bomb bay detail and the main spar going through both fuselage sections before they join together, and the choice of closed bomb bay there highlighted is stage 30. Moving on again, page section 8 now decides whether you need the model in flight or on the ground, and looks at construction of the engine nacelles, opening up some holes for the aerial fit for this version of the tooling. And as you can see, it goes through, repeats for the other side, nacelles added onto the wing section with the addition of the landing lights. Page 10, and section 45 already sees the wing halves being joined together, top and bottom surfaces, along with the ailerons, which are separate parts. Doesn't say whether they can be closed or not, and it doesn't give the usual angle of deflection in degrees. More work on the nacelles left and right hand sides, with the firewalls being added and the undercarriage doors in the closed position should you want your model to be in flight. If you want them open, we've got the addition there of the undercarriage struts, so it'd be interesting to see whether they could actually be left out and added towards the end of the build. Page 12, wings joined to the fuselage on that centre spar. The tail wheel again open or closed undercarriage bay doors. Rear of the aircraft still with the tail surfaces, vertical tail surface, elevators and rudder. And again, it doesn't say whether they can be posed as there's no angle of deflections given. Section 68 on top of page 14 starts to look at construction of the engine and the conclusion of the nacelles before they're added onto the awaiting wing sections. More ordnance for the bomb bay and the bomb bay being added. So again, it looks really well detailed. Nice paint job there, will be rewarding with a wash, bring out all that detail. And then we're on to the turrets, or the glazed nose version. Again, simple enough construction. Rear turret and other fuselage windows. It's nice to note that these can be added after assembly, so you could simply mask the recess off during the painting process and add the window later on towards the end of the build where there's less risk of damaging the clear parts. Section 89 deals with the side windows. Again, they can be added after assembly and a clear view of the Astrodome being fitted. Some alterations being made in stage 90 to the side glass, and optional parts of whether it's closed over or open with small arms. The wheels, section 91 page 18 starts looking at the undercarriage, the wheels. So they've got weighted flat spots which simply snapped into place between the forks. All the small aerials and exhausts and other glazed panels being added there in section 94. 95 sees some more work on the engines and the propellers being added, along with some smaller aerials, cockpit glass. And the final stage of the build in step 101 is the addition of the antenna array, and it does clearly note there that you need to add the decals before the aerials are attached in place. So all in all, it looks to be a very promising build, a very detailed build. It's certainly not going to be a quick weekend project. So let's take a look at the plastic parts in a bit more detail. So we'll just take a look at the clear parts. They are flawless. There's no mould imperfections or anything. A little bit thick maybe, but it is 1/72 scale. There shouldn't be any problem removing those from the sprue and cleaning up those attachment points. Next is frame B. So we've got some cockpit detail. There's those wheels, got some lovely hub detail there. Cockpit instrumentation. Blind side, not much in the way of ejector pin marks. Nothing that would be visible on the completed aircraft anyway. You've got the sections for the turrets and the undercarriage legs there. Frame F, we've got the elevators, and we can have a first look at that structural detail seen on Wellingtons, and it doesn't look overdone. It doesn't look as though it's got a skeleton poking through from underneath. Engine detail is quite basic, but then it is set right back in the cowl, so we shouldn't be seeing too much anyway. Sprue D, got the bomb bay, some other internal details, elevators, tail and rudder, all those internal bulkheads. Got some ejector pin marks there, but it's on the inside of the closed bomb bay, so you won't see those. Frame A, which contains the fuselage. Again, moulding looks absolutely perfect, and the level of detail on the inside of this is got to be seen to be believed. There are a few little ejector pin marks, but nothing that you probably see through the finished glazing. There's no blemishes to the surface and the external side. Frame C contains the wings and that central fuselage floor that the build concentrates around. Again, some lovely detail there. Frame B contains the engine nacelles and the lower surface of the wings. A bit more of the Bombay detail that goes in there. So again, nothing in the way of ejector pin marks that would be visible on the finished model. Nothing that's going to interfere with the fit. Last but not least, we've got the aerial and antenna fit for the aircraft. Way over scale. It would be hard to replicate those in injection molded plastic in the correct thickness or thinness. Maybe best looking at whether they could be fabricated from rod or whether anybody does any aftermarket ones. And frame Y looks to be like the depth charges and ordnance for the Bombay. So all in all, the plastic looks really good. It's living up to Airfix's reputation of being quite well produced. Shouldn't be any real issues with cleanup and removal of the parts. So let's have a look at the decals and the options included in the kit. Airfix supply 2 marking options in the kit, and this is Scheme A, which is for a 72 Squadron Royal Air Force machine from Shevna, Devon, England, October 1942. It's in the white fuselage sides and undersurface with a disruptive camouflage pattern of extra dark sea grey and dark slate grey on the upper surfaces. Scheme B provided in the kit is a total contrast, this time with black fuselage sides and undersurface with dark earth and medium stone camouflage on the upper surfaces. And this is from 38 Squadron Royal Air Force, Gambut, Libya, 1942. Decals in the kit are contained on quite a small sheet, quality being assured as they are printed by Cartograph, so should behave like aftermarket parts. So there we have Airfix's 1/72nd scale Vickers Wellington GRVIII. So a big thanks to PM Models for the review sample and the chance to build this great looking kit. Looking through the instruction book, the model contains a host of detail on the internal sections. This wouldn't look out of place in 1/48 scale. Certainly not going to be a quick weekend build, but nonetheless it should be quite straightforward and enjoyable. I will of course report back the progress of that build. So from Rick's Scale Model Fix, until next time, please take care.